Mark here. Today I'm practicing a Case 3 approaches, Case 3 landings. I am by no means an expert, but this is the way that I do it, and it gets the aircraft down on the deck safely, and obviously there's tons of room for improvement. I'll make a ton of mistakes, but maybe some of you are looking to learn just the basics of the process. So anyways, I'll show you what I do. So we're up here above the Marianas Islands. We're currently at around 28,000 feet. The carrier group is about 24 nautical miles to my right here. And we'll start by just getting the aircraft set up, specifically, I guess, communications and navigation stuff. So we'll start with TACAN. So we'll hit the TACAN on the UFC, and I happen to know that the carrier is on channel 73X. So we'll hit enter on that and turn the TACAN on. And then the ILS, I know it's on channel 16. So we'll hit enter there and turn that on. Next we're going to go set up the HSI screen on the MFD. And we'll box TACAN and ILS. So that's right here. And once we get the course information from the Marshal, we'll enter that in, and it will show up on here and give us a nice course line to follow. So next step is we have to tune the radio to 126.5 is the carrier in this case. So turn that on and hit enter, and then I will let them know we are inbound. Washington 777 inbound for carrier.
777, Courage Marshal, H3 recovery, CV1 approach, expect final bearing 41, altimeter is 2993, 777, Marshal Mothers 221, radio 21, DME Angels 6, expected approach time is 12.
Okay, so they gave us a radial of 221. So we'll hold down our course switch.
777, read back correct.
And once our C cell comes up on the UFC, we'll put in the radial that they gave us, 221. And then we can, you can see here it's set up a course line on our MFD. So that's basically the carrier is indicated by this symbol here. And then the radial is pointing out. This would be behind the carrier. So this is, they want us to go out on this line, and they mentioned the DME of 21. So they want us to be 21 miles, nautical miles behind the carrier. And then they want us at Angel 6, so 6,000 feet. And that's where they want us to set up for our approach. So, and they want us to have that all set up and ready by 12 minutes after the hour. So it's now 14:59. So at 15:12 we will begin our approach, and having had all this set up beforehand. So I'll turn off the autopilot and we'll head down, start making our descent, and a gentle right turn to start to intercept that course line. Now as we're making our descent, one of the things that we can start to manage is our HUD. We can declutter a little bit. We're not going to need all of the information that's displayed here. Go to the early warning page and turn off the where's that electronic warfare. Either way, the RWR notifications that are displayed on the HUD, we want to disable them. And also, I guess after that, that's kind of it for decluttering. I wanted to set this lower MFD to the SA page, and then I also like to have the checklist up on the upper right hand MFD. And the main reason for that is we'll note here the aircraft weight. So we're currently at 37,200 and some pounds. I read the NATOPS manual a while back, and I remember it saying that the F-18 should be at 32,000 pounds or less before touching down on the carrier. So we want to get that weight down. I don't have any weapons that we can jettison. I do have drop tanks, but it just seems like kind of a waste of perfectly good hardware to jettison at this point. So easiest thing to probably do is dump some fuel. The Hornet has some nozzles on the vertical stabilizers that will kind of dump fuel. So the fuel dump switch is on our left console here, so I'll just flip that on. The thing to remember when you're dumping fuel is just the simple fact that it's on. It's very easy when you get busy in the cockpit with other tasks to forget that it's enabled and you're dumping fuel out of the aircraft at a pretty high rate. So I definitely want to keep it on the forefront of your mind as you're doing other tasks, that it's on, and turn it off in a timely manner. So we're going to try and turn it off at around 32,000 pounds, maybe just a little over, because we do have some flight time before we reach the carrier. So yeah, so that's what we'll aim for. We're currently at 36,000. We're approaching 6,000 feet here. So I'm going to get the autopilot ready. Oops. And right when we hit 6,000, I'll hit the B-alts on the UFC. We're a little low there, but that'll work. Okay, we've gone 30 from the Washington, so we're going to start to turn to intercept our course. So the Case 3 obviously allows us to set up for an approach for a carrier landing in very poor visibility. So as you can see right now, we have almost no visibility. Hopefully as we get lower here, we'll pop out of the clouds a little bit. Possibly even, yes, like this, for example, we're sort of in and out of the clouds as we make our way over. So a pretty good view over in the direction of the carrier over there for now, but we're going to be right back into a bank of clouds here before we intercept this course. So again, we're trying to intercept the course on the radial that they gave us. So the radial is 221 degrees. They specifically want us at 21 miles along that radial, and they want us at 6,000 feet. So we've established the 6,000 feet part, and we're approaching the radial now. We're kind of perpendicular to it. And as we get closer to it, we're going to turn right towards the carrier. You can see they wanted us at 21 nautical miles. We're at 32, so we're actually quite a bit farther out. So we'll turn towards them to decrease our distance along the radial. And then once we establish the proper distance, we're going to start an orbit, a left-hand orbit, and just continue orbiting until we reach the specific approach time they gave us, which was 15:12. So 12 minutes after the hour. We'll continue orbiting until then, and at that time we will begin our kind of final approach. So you can see on the HUD, there's a line there that's moving down, sliding down between those two dots towards our velocity vector. That is the course line. So we're going to turn as it gets closer to the center of the velocity vector. That means we're getting closer to actually being on it, as opposed to flying towards it or away from it. So we're probably going to overfly it a little here, which is no big deal. We can correct as we go. But we'll get a nice sharp turn on just to get as close as we possibly can. And since we overshot a little bit, I'm just going to kind of overshoot back to the right. We got massive amounts of speed, probably a little too much for what we're doing, so I'm going to slow the aircraft down while we're correcting our course here. I'll bring it down to about 250. Once we reach 250, I'll engage the auto throttle. so that we don't have to worry so much about it. There we go. Okay, so now we've hit the line, we're at the right altitude, we're at the right distance, so we'll let the carrier know. Washington, 777, established.
777, Roger, state 290.
So state 29 means we have 2,900 pounds of fuel left, which is, as I mentioned before, I probably left that dump on a little too long. I kind of forgot about it while I was trying to line up the course, so ideally you want to have more than 2,000 pounds of fuel when you land. That's kind of a Navy rule. It's a bit of a no-no to land with less than that. So it's going to be a little tight at this point, but we did, on the right side, get the aircraft weight under 32,000 pounds, which is what we need to land on the deck. So we are going to continue to orbit here. So the big thing with Case 3, one of the more interesting and tricky things, is what we're trying to do now that we've established this orbit is that we need to complete this orbit, or complete whichever orbit we're on as we approach our approach time of 1512. We need to complete that orbit and be on course towards the carrier at the exact moment that we reach that time. So we're trying to time these orbits, or time these circles, so that we can, at exactly 1512, we can bank out of the orbit and be directly on course for the carrier. And the reason for that is, in a lot of cases, you have quite a few aircraft in this marshalling stack, so doing these orbits maybe at 1,000 feet above, 1,000 feet below. The marshal, or the landing officers, or whoever you're speaking to, the approach control, they want you to come in at 1 minute intervals. They want all these aircraft to come in at 1 minute intervals in a nice controlled fashion. So it's imperative, in order to keep those 1 minute intervals, that everybody reaches or begins their approach at the specified approach time. I find it incredibly challenging to do, but it is fun to try, and it's, feels pretty good when you get close. I'm sure there's probably things that I could do better to help me with that, but in the meantime, we're going to do our best today. So we're now at 1508, almost 1509. So basically, once we are finished this particular orbit, we're going to have about 3 minutes until our approach. So we kind of have to find a way here to make this orbit last about 3 minutes, 2 minutes and 45 seconds. So other things we can do while we're in this orbit, we can configure the aircraft in other ways. We can get our hook down. Our speed is set at 250, which is where we want it for now. We should have our lights off at this point. Yeah, so just kind of getting the aircraft ready. Any sort of lighting changes you want to make, if you like your HUD to be dimmer.
1811, passing waypoint 1 at 18,000.
You can set that stuff up at this point. So we're now at almost 1510, so just about 2 minutes till our approach. So an interesting thing, I was reading an interview at one point a while back with a fighter pilot, and the reporter asked, or the interviewer asked the pilot, like, how do you meet this approach time? Like, what do you do if you're the wrong end of the circle, of the wrong end of the orbit, and you need to get over for your approach time? How do you do it? And the pilot's response, that I thought was quite funny, was, you're in a $30 million fighter jet. You just do what you got to do, and you make it happen. It's easier said than done, but I thought it was a pretty good comment. So we are now about a minute away, well, a minute and 15 seconds away from our approach time. I'm going to increase the bank on our turn just a little bit just to speed things up. One minute. So once we get out of this orbit and we're on course, we're gonna let the carrier know. Oh, one last thing we want to do as well. We're currently on the radial, but we can flip this over to the actual final bearing. So we'll hit our course select and enter 41. It's the direct reciprocal of 221. In this case, it's not always the case, but in this case, they're giving us the direct reciprocal of the final bearing as the radial. So we've just flipped it now. So you can see the course arrow is now pointing in the other direction towards the carrier instead of away from it. We are 5 seconds away, so we're gonna be a little bit late on our approach here, but not too bad. It's a little bad. Okay, here we go. Washington, 777, commencing.
777, radar contact, 23 miles. Expect final bearing, 41.
So we're not directly parallel to the course line yet because we're just turned in a little early. So just letting the aircraft drift over.
777, switch approach.
Okay, so now that we've given the command to switch approach, we're now going to be talking to the approach controller instead of the marshalling controllers. So we'll just check in with them. Washington, 777, checking in. Oh, try that again. Washington, 777, checking in.
777, approach, final bearing, 41.
So we're going to make our descent. As we break through 5,000 feet, we want to let them know. Washington, 777.
Altitude.
Platform.
Altitude.
777, roger.
So we're going to make our way down to 1,500 feet. And by the time we reach 10 nautical miles out from the carrier, which we can see in the lower right-hand corner of the HUD here, we're currently at 13. By the time we reach 10, we want to try to have the aircraft fully configured for landing. We've drifted quite a bit left here. So we're going to drop our flaps. And our gear. And go full flaps. So off in the distance I can see a flashing green light, which means we're lined up a little too far to the right. We can also see that with the ILS indicator on the HUD. So continuing to descend, but getting a little bit more on our glide slope. I really actually let that slip quite a bit. I usually don't get that far off course, but we should be able to correct it just by kind of going to the left of the carrier. You can see the needle start to now drifting back towards the center, so we will as well. So we reached 1,500 feet, so I'm going to start to trim the aircraft up. You can see on the mid-left of the HUD our AOA 6.4, 6.5. We want that to be in the kind of 8.2 to 8.9 sort of range. I think 8.3 is the ideal. So we trim our pitch up to establish that. And now we just want to fly pretty much like level, or, you know, we can have a slight decrease, but I'm already fairly low at 1,200 feet.
Contact 8 miles.
So I'm going to stay pretty much level until we intercept our glide slope. And the needle for that should pop up fairly soon.
Fuel low. Fuel low.
So the fuel low indication there is a consequence of me leaving the fuel dump on for a little too long. But we'll live. So there you can see in the distance we've got an orange light, which means we are now on centerline. So once you're on centerline with the carrier, you still want to stay slightly to the right. And that's because the centerline is of the angled deck on the carrier, but the carrier is not actually traveling that direction. It's traveling, I think, 11 degrees to the right of that. So if we were to put ourselves right on that orange light, the carrier would essentially drive away from us, and we would continually be kind of to the left of the runway. So we line up slightly right so that we can kind of stay ahead of the carrier as it drives away from us. And there's our needle for
ACLS lock on 6 miles. Say needles.
So that's our needle for our glide slope. We're a little low, so we're going to kind of maintain altitude instead of dropping until we kind of intercept it. And then once we intercept it, we'll just decrease power and glide down along it. So at this point, I'm just going to do a quick check. Gears down, full flaps, hook is down. So we are fully configured for landing here. Our angle of attack is, when it's not showing on the HUD, it was formerly on the mid-left of the HUD. When it doesn't show, that means that it's correct. It just basically takes itself out of your view when it's not something to be worried about. So we currently have the correct angle of attack, or within reasonable range. If it were to reappear, then we would have to correct angle of attack.
777, approaching glide path.
Okay, we're starting to get close to the glide path, which is great. And there it's intercepted, so we'll reduce power. And we want to put the velocity vector just on the deck. We've sort of drifted left, so we can kind of cut right here. You can see we've got a red light there. We want that to be orange. So we'll kind of go right to make it orange. Continue to drop. There's the orange light. And we get a little bit lower to get back on our glide slope. Bring the velocity vector underneath the carrier in our HUD view there until that needle rises up on us again. Okay, the needle's pretty much centered now, so we'll put the velocity vector back on the deck. keep adjusting.
777, on glide path. On course, 3/4 of a mile, call the ball. You're on glide slope.
Hornet ball.
Roger ball, 21 knots down the angle. Fly the ball.
I've gotten a little low here and a little left, but we can correct. We're gonna hit the burble right away here. And the 2-wire. Not too shabby. So hook up, wings folded, nose wheel steering on, and exit the runway as quickly as possible to parking. So we'll make sure our anti-skid is off and try to get a good parking position here. And parking brake is set. And that's that. So 2-wire is not bad. I do get the occasional 3-wire, but I'm definitely happy with a 2-wire. Things got a little hectic at the end there. I was a little bit below glide slope, and then I compensated to get up and kind of forced the aircraft down at the very end. It worked, but I've definitely done it smoother. So something to strive for. One thing I'm just going to note here at the end, a lot of times I'm on like the Hogget training server and watching guys land, and you can tell they're new, and the biggest mistake I see them make is they're aiming to land at the back of the deck. You want to have your velocity vector indicator not back there, but up here, moreover in this area here, and you want to aim almost to be in the center of the deck. You aim back there, you're going to get a 1-wire every time, or you're just going to skip over all the wires and have a bolter. You don't need to land way back there. You're trying to land in the center and let the hook catch. I think there's a fear because the runway is so short that you're just going to overshoot if you aim way over here. But definitely just you kind of have to trust the arrestor hook system and that it's going to catch a wire for you, and just aim up deck and you hit those afterburners as soon as you get on deck, so that if you do miss, you're good. But yeah, landing, you're not trying to land way back there. You're trying to land here, kind of in the center, and let the hook do the work. So yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about that. Now obviously, as I say in almost every one of my videos, I am not an expert in any way. I'm just a guy trying to learn and have fun, and I've really don't want anyone to think that I think I'm an expert in any way. In fact, if you know a better way to do anything that I've talked about here, please share it. Let us know. We're all here to learn and have fun. If you did happen to learn something from the video, that's awesome. I'm stoked for that, and I hope you continue to progress learning. It's such a rewarding process to learn an aircraft in DCS, so congrats and good luck and all of that. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.